Hi, I'm Mike Troy, Editor-in-Chief of Retail Leader. I'm here at the FMI Midwinter Executive Conference in the Retail Leader and Progressive Grocer live video studio. I am joined by Thom Blischok, Chairman and CEO of the Dialogic Group, and what was the rest of that? Strategic Advisor?
I'm an Executive Strategic Advisor to the Nielsen Company.
Okay, perfect. So you hosted a panel yesterday that was fascinating with FMI, Nielsen, some other folks talking about the digital journey and the transformation and some of those high-level insights. Touch a little bit on what some of the key findings of that research were and what it means for the industry.
I think probably the most important part of the findings are really centered on the size of the magnitude of change. Virtually, consumers in the food and beverage space spend about $400 billion a year. We think that by 2025, about $100 billion of that moves online.
Let me stop you. When you say we think, you don't just think, you did a lot of research to get to that number.
We actually modeled that. We modeled the number from a shopper perspective upwards. So we basically interviewed through surveys about 2,500 online shoppers. We extrapolated that to what would be the market potential for online retailing by 2025.
That's a big number.
Well, what it requires both retailers and manufacturers to think about operating models. You cannot be in bricks and mortar and in clicks separately. What we find is that most operating models need to be substantially changed. Everything from supply chain to merchandising, marketing, just a simple product availability and product pricing. So big shifts occur in the operating model.
So that speaks to the notion of the collaboration changing between retailers and suppliers to capitalize on this new opportunity.
Look, I would say to you that for many years we have been in the model of let's build more stores, let's add more items to the store. For many years the stores have been in control of the shopping experience. Today, the shopper with the world of digital is now in control of the shopping experience. So the brand becomes as important, if not more important, than the banner does. What that requires is some thinking differently in the area of collaboration. So one of the major issues we talked about on the panel yesterday was how do we collaborate differently? So if we have to change our supply chain, how do we change our supply chain? If we have to think about brand and merchandising together, how do we do that? But what is very clear is that with the 100 plus interviews and conversations we had in the preparation of this research is that the current collaboration model is typically based on pay for play. It has to move to pay for performance. We have to be able to understand the right way to get the product both digitally and in store. And by the way, stores are not going away.
Right.
They just are going to get repurposed. So one of the initiatives that I believe that we're going to be focused on this year is what does digital collaboration look like? And it will be a different operating model by a far margin.
Yeah, what does that performance collaboration model look like?
Yeah, well,
are we there yet? Are there best practices out there, folks that are doing it?
No, we're early in the cycle. I mean, I would say to you that there are some retailers that are really forward thinking about how do I rethink my operating model so that I can work with manufacturers to rethink their operating model, eliminating multiple or dueling forecasting systems, being clear about how to innovate differently. We're in the early cycles. I think the couple things that are truisms that sort of are really core from what we learned this year is that if we look at the retail operating model, the one that will be probably most successful is a bricks and mortar with an integrated clicks. Now, whether you choose to do home delivery or not, another piece. But the major issue about this operating model is that the consumer is willing to pay for some of these, I'll call it convenience services. We're still early in the stages of experimentation of how to do that. On the manufacturing side, manufacturers are going to have to think about a little different kind of supply chain. It's not just ship stuff to the stores. It may be ship stuff to the stores, to I'll call it an e-commerce center. It may be to direct to home.
Right.
So lots of shifts in that space.
Yeah, it's fascinating, all of the experimentation that's going on. Just touching on experimentation, do you feel like some conventional retailers sort of ceded ground to innovators? Like, one thing that's always struck me is the meal kits.
Mhm.
It seems like that would have been something that a traditional grocer could have done if they were so inclined
Mhm.
and weren't concerned about losing trips to a store. Same way with some subscription models. Those entrepreneurs came in and did
Sure,
those things
sure.
first.
Look, Mike, grocery retailing is a tough business. You're working only along for 2-point margin points or 3
Yeah.
margin points. What's happened is for 50 years, the leadership of grocery has been worried about how do we build more stores? How do we get on the next great
Yeah.
corner? We're moving to a different era. We're moving to where 70% of all capital investments in retail are being placed in the perimeter. We're moving to an era where a center store is being resized. We're moving to a store where technology becomes very important. But what's really clear about that is that retailers are now waking up to the fact, and have for the past couple of years, that digital's a big play, and they're having to change the shopping experience. So if I were to give you 3 words to describe tomorrow's shopping experience, it would be easy to shop the store, a lot of expertise, and fair. All 3 of those are going to be both bricks and mortar and clicks and mortar.
Sure.
And the retailer has to integrate those. And if they don't integrate those, they will be falling far behind.
Yeah. So let's end on this. What are the next steps in this research continuum, I guess, that you're on with FMI and Nielsen?
Well, this year we established the foundations.
Okay.
And the foundations are marvelous because they really talk about the size of the potential market. They talk about the percentage of shoppers moving online. They talk about the impact in center store. And they talk about the realities of readiness or lack thereof of both retailers and manufacturers. This year, we're going to spend a lot on scorecards. How well, against best practices, how well are you performing? And next year, we'll spend time on benchmarking. Being able to benchmark you as a retailer of this size against another retailer of your similar size, or you as a manufacturer. But more importantly, you as a manufacturer and retailer collaborating together. This next 2 years is all about establishing not only the foundations, but the tactics for growth. And one thing that's very clear is that we'll spend a lot of time on helping retailers and manufacturers understanding strategy before structure. Because today, there's a lot of structure before strategy.
Exactly.
And we want to go the other way. And with the data, with the analytics, with the ways we're going to view the shopper holistically, we're going to help people see that strategy is absolutely more important than structure, all centered on profitability. The one thing that's lacking in the industry is a clear profitability model.
All right. Strategy before structure. I'm going to remember that.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for
Likewise.
joining us, Tom.
It's
Thank you.
always a pleasure, Michael.
All
Thank
right.
you much. Thank you.
Thanks.